Coming up next. Stay tuned to learn more about the state of blockchain education at major universities all around the world. Reimagine 2020.
Hi, I'm Andrarchy, aka Andrew Levine. I am the CEO of Open Orchard, and I'm excited to be at Reimagine 2020.
Hey everybody, it is Patrick McLain. We are back. As you all know, we're going for 72 hours for this conference. We have had a very diverse group of speakers, obviously, right? I was just telling the person who I'm lucky enough to be sitting here talking with, Andrew, that my mind is blown at how many different people we've talked to, whether it's lawyers from the regulatory standpoint of the space, investors, technologists, innovative companies. So I won't go on too long. I won't butcher it. I feel like it seems like you have a real name and you go by another name, but I'll call him Andrew Levine right now. But introduce yourself. Tell everybody, what do you do, and maybe a little bit about how you got into blockchain.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Levine, and I spent between 3 and 4 years at a company named Steemit. I ended my career there as their head of communications. And yeah, I go by Andrarchy. It's my username. And we could talk about why I prefer that over my real name. Part of the reason is that everybody calls me Adam Levine and asks me whether I'm related to the singer. But the other is security. And one of the things I like about the internet and the types of products that are coming online powered by blockchain is that you can retake control over your identity, and picking your username and using your username I see as a way of as one part of taking back control of your personal information. So now I'm the CEO of Open Orchard. It's a company I started with 6 other engineers, 4 of whom were blockchain engineers at Steemit, core Steam blockchain developers. And we are now working on a 2-layer solution, not a second layer solution, but a 2-layer solution that is really about enabling an internet that people can trust. And we're doing that by building a blockchain named Koinos and a second layer solution called Odyssey. And the purpose of these pieces of software is to give developers and users back control and ownership over their private information. And by doing that, we think we can build an internet that people can trust again. And so that's what we're trying to do at Open Orchard.
But can you, and again, I think just to kind of frame up the audience, right, there's a bunch of university students here, right? And I'm always intrigued. Get on a call with like 50 students, and in certain circles of blockchain, I feel like there's a lot of pessimism. Many people who are in ICOs or haven't seen technology develop as fast as they think it should. And we get on calls with, a bunch of university kids, 19, 20, and they're like, I'm going to build an application and I'm going to build it on blockchain, right? And like they have zero filter. They have no break, like they have no breaks. Like, so can you just walk them through a little bit? Like, how did you get to this point? Like, what was your past before? What kind of brought you here? And like, what drew you or attracted you to blockchain?
Wow. It's been so long. I'm a little different than a lot of people in the space. And it's obviously a long and complicated story that has to do with freedom and crowdsourcing and the unlimited potential of the internet to unlock human capabilities. But I think what distinguishes my experience of blockchain was the realization with Bitcoin that anyone could create their own money, that I think most people saw Bitcoin and they went, somebody else created this internet money. And that resulted in a perspective that was maximalistic in terms of Bitcoin. Don't get me wrong, I love Bitcoin. But for me, I saw Satoshi Nakamoto as just another person. And they released a piece of open source software that created money out of thin air. And if they can do it, anyone can do it. And of course, the reality wound up being quite nuanced. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody has the technical expertise. Not everybody understands how to do it properly, how to do it in a way that is economically sustainable. And just because you can fork a blockchain does not mean you can create a blockchain. I work with blockchain engineers. These are a very rarefied group of people who are not just capable of forking a blockchain. I can fork a blockchain. They're capable of maintaining a blockchain. That's something you never hear about. There's lots of work that goes on to keeping the ecosystem just functional. Then you got to upgrade it. That's something you never hear about. You got to improve it. What is your plan for improving it? And then to go back all the way to the beginning, you should be building your blockchain from scratch with an eye towards maintenance and upgradability. And that's something we're thinking a lot about with Koinos. And one of our kind of unique value propositions is that Koinos is going to be unusually upgradable. It's going to allow us to iterate fast. And I think if I was speaking to university students, that would be the core of my message, is that in this dynamic future filled with disruptive technologies, you have to adopt evolutionary strategies. What blew my mind about Bitcoin and this incredibly important and disruptive. And it's still a win for humanity, but it's an evolutionary approach. The idea being we need to maximize the number of currencies that can be created so that a small number of powerful currencies can emerge.
Love it. And obviously there's a lot to unpack there. And now I think, and by the way, I no one can see that I did this, or maybe people can now. I have another camera, but like I turned off my mic that you see, or my camera that you see, just because the internet was getting a little choppy on some side. But you know, and you hit a point there, and I always kind of tell people, you know, I think it's like a lot of investors, at least the first investors, ICOs or whatever, who kind of pump money into blockchain. I mean, some of them kind of know what the hell they're talking about, but like I just feel like 95% of them don't, like, especially when it comes to the tech. And you and I were kind of talking before. A core part of what you know our company does is you know, whether it's investment or whatever, but we've always had like a real engineering focus. You know, I've been writing code since I was a kid. You know, I'm not the biggest expert, but I understand enough about it. But just what shocked me is when I kind of stepped into the blockchain space, right, where I kind of brought a little army around me of people that I trust. Like, all right, let's really get to know how to build this, and right, it just how quickly I learned that this is not easy to build, right? Like, right, it's like everybody wants it done tomorrow or yesterday. There's a lot of false promises there, and in some cases, people have just misappropriated funds and really not executed well. But I feel like even if you efficiently spent your money as well as possible, we would probably still kind of be around where we're at now. Like, what's your take on that? Like, what would you tell an engineering student today? Like, you know, are we at the beginning, or should they be discouraged if they feel like they don't have all the answers? Should they expect new evolutions coming forward?
One of the big problems, I mean, there's a lot of good points that you made, and I'm just trying to figure out which one to kind of hit first, because like you, I talk to two types of people: people who are interested in blockchain and have no understanding about what it is, and people who do have an understanding about what it is and have no understanding of what people actually want, what end users want, what developers want. And I kind of have this weird perspective here because in my experience in the blockchain space, as somebody who was trying to advocate for the adoption of a blockchain protocol, the vast majority of developers that I spoke to, so the Steam blockchain was unique in that it was actually somewhat easy to incorporate into applications, and it could deliver a consistent user experience within those applications. And so developers were really drawn to it far more than they should have been, given the level of funding that the protocol had. It was a real underdog of a protocol, doesn't even have smart contracting like Ethereum or EOS, and yet developers were really drawn to it. And so you'd think, okay, I'm going to tell you all about this blockchain and how you can leverage it within your app. And I was losing those developers, and I'm not a technical person, but to them, I was too technical. And so in our world, in my experience, I'd be curious to hear your perspective on this, is that the people that I'm around, because they're all deep blockchain people, kind of look at the world as if everybody's a blockchain developer, including developers. And the reality is that the vast overwhelming majority of developers are not blockchain developers, and they don't want to be blockchain developers. So with that's part of the reason for our approach. Our second layer basically has two components. One is it's an open and encrypted database of social information. And so this provides social features to applications that enable them to protect their users' information. And it's scalable because it's not on a blockchain. The other component of that layer is a developer toolbox that will integrate with our blockchain when that launches. And so the idea is that if you integrate with this layer, even if it's just for the social features, it'll be very easy for you to integrate as an ordinary developer to integrate with our blockchain. We're not telling people we're building this blockchain and you're going to have to figure out how to incorporate it into your app. We treat developers like application developers who want access to features. And so if I'm talking to a university class of developers, I would assume that the vast majority of them are not going to ever be blockchain developers. And maybe if a lot of them think they are, I would try to, make it clear to them that they probably won't be, and that they probably shouldn't be. At the end of the day, what most developers like doing is building applications, and they like building applications for users. We build protocols for developers. This is highly technical work. And so my advice would be focus on, ironically, entrepreneurship, understanding end users, and figuring out the problems you want to solve. What is to quote Simon Sinek, what is your why? What are you passionate about? What do you care about? And then gravitate towards the part of the stack that is most interesting to you. And if you're not an engineer, then the part of the stack is the marketing part of the stack. If the application layer is what is most interesting to you, which I think is the majority of developers, that's why Flutter is huge, and that's why Python is more commonly known than C++, and we work in predominantly C++, So yeah, figure out the problems you want to solve, why you want to solve them, and if you're interested in taking advantage of decentralized technologies, then look at the landscape, look at the options available to you that are catering to you as a developer, to the needs of the developer. One of the unique value propositions I think we're going to come to market with is that I've looked at all the protocols, I've looked at all their white papers, I've looked at all of their websites, and you never see either in their implementation or in their messaging any reference to caring about the needs of developers. No blockchain protocol that I know of was constructed with feedback from the developers who are ultimately going to use the protocol. We're doing that. We're building it. We understand the important features that it must have, but we're not doing it in a vacuum. We're asking developers what they need. They need the ability to create large numbers of accounts for free. They need those accounts to be usable. They need the blockchain to deliver a consistent user experience. And they need to be able to leverage this technology without bankrupting their company. And they're not getting that from any existing protocol. And that's what we think we're going to bring to market. So look into what we're building. That's what I would tell engineering students, because by the time you graduate, we'll probably have released something. Hopefully, to your point, it always takes a little longer than you think.
There's a ton to unpack there, and I had some technical difficulties on my part before we started this, so I know we got a little bit late, and we probably, I don't know, have 9-10 minutes here. Now I kind of want to have this conversation for the next 2 hours. I feel like we could geek out and talk about a lot of things. And to your point a little bit, I mean, I've always kind of tried to look at a matrix of like developers and like what makes a blockchain developer, what would make someone pivot to want to learn blockchain, right? And it's like, I feel like we see, if you're a kid coming out of school, or, again, I've been in Silicon Valley for a long time. I know people in power of technology, right? So it's like, if I look at why they care, you want to work at Apple, Google, Facebook, what is it? If you do your job well, what does doing a good job look like? Well, it means that maybe you made an application run a little bit faster, or a little bit more efficiently, right, by milliseconds. Maybe it means that you have extorted user data in some way and like turned a profit, right? You can kind of like go down this list, and then you line it up to what blockchain is. And you kind of find that like most of these boxes are opposite. Like blockchain applications are inherently probably going to be slower right now than most centralized applications, right? Inherently, they like are kind of geared around not necessarily giving companies data or letting them, right, like really profit off of them. So you kind of say like, what is that underlying thing? And especially if you're a kid coming into school, kid getting out of school, like which company do I want to work for? I just feel like there's maybe a little bit of an incentive misalignment. Not that people don't get it, right? And I feel like it's becoming more mainstream, but at the end of the day, you kind of get down to the bottom, and it's, it's probably we might not be using the same metrics to develop, define success as we did in the previous, 5 years, right? It's kind of like, do you care about privacy? Would you care about how your kid's data was owned? Would you care about, decentralized money, et cetera, right? Like, so I do feel like one day the marketing campaign, I've always joked, I want to run a marketing campaign, like calling all developers, right? Like calling all developers to blockchain, where it's like, you see those ads, it's like got milk, right? Or just general category products marketing. Like who marketed cheese, right? Who marketed milk, right? Like how did that look, where there's so many different parties? And sometimes I feel like blockchain needs the same thing, right? We would probably all benefit from like a unified marketing plan to really communicate what we're trying to do.
Yeah, well, I think there are a couple of problems that we face. I think that the nature of one of the big problems that we're trying to solve and that we're fighting against is that we believe that one of the biggest problems in the space and one of the biggest attack vectors on the space is how protocols are being launched in terms of their initial distribution of stake. And so we have these protocols that are created by people who take a large percentage of the tokens. And that incentivizes those people to act like their solution is the ultimate solution to every problem. And so they don't want really to advocate for blockchain adoption unless it's theirs. It's Ethereum adoption, it's EOS adoption, you know, and considering they're all built on the same core technology, it's surprising how little of them market generally. And I think that's part of the reason. I think the other side to the argument is that we shouldn't be marketing blockchain. We should be marketing the unique features that it adds to the landscape. Like you said, it makes developing applications harder. It makes user experience harder. It makes things more expensive. Now, we think we have those problems solved, but we haven't released our product yet. So, but again, it goes back to trust. It goes back to ownership. The pitch we're going to be making to developers is here is a software stack that will help you build profitable applications with powerful features. We're not even going to talk about blockchain or cryptocurrency. We're going to have features that are powered by blockchain and cryptocurrency. You're going to be able to sell digital assets within your app to generate revenue and drive down your cost of goods to consumers. But we're not going to lead with blockchain and cryptocurrency. We're going to lead with appealing to their needs, their immediate needs. People don't know that they need this technology. And the way that you convince people to use your product is not by rationally explaining all the things. Apple doesn't do that, right? You're talking about marketing campaigns. Apple doesn't go, you should buy MacBooks because it's made out of metal and it has 256 gigabyte SSD and has 16 gigabytes of RAM. They say we think different. You know, we're rebels. Are you a rebel? And I think it's more along those lines. And speaking from my organization, where I think that the opportunity is in the idea of trust. People don't trust the internet. They don't trust their apps anymore. They don't trust the companies. And really, the short answer to your question, it occurred to me a while ago, but I forgot it, is that technology is always about removing middlemen. And blockchain is just one new tool in the toolbox that enables you to remove middlemen, but you got to do it in the right way. Otherwise, you do it inefficiently. You do it in a way that nobody actually wants to use. And if nobody wants to use it, if it does feel too slow, if it does feel too expensive, then you might as well not even use it in the first place, because a technology that no one uses is not a technology. It's not useful. Don't do that.
Love it. Well, hey, I'm not going to lie. Like, we got on late. And like, I've done like 40 of these interviews the last 10 days. This is probably like one of the weirdest ones, but I love it. Like, I'm actually kind of mad that I have to leave right now, but I have to leave. We got to go to the next interview. We have a few other aspects coming up, like panels and stuff this week, but like, yeah, that was a weird one. Like, because
weird.
When I play,
did I say anything weird?
No, not you. I just feel like we hit like a lot of good points, but you know, we didn't like really talk about your company or anything, right? It's like the standard format. It was just kind of like geeking out in different directions. Like, I love that talk. I mean, I want to talk more. I think you understand right now. We can probably talk about it for the next hour, pretty fluidly. But hey,
well, I'm glad you feel that way.
So, hey, as I mentioned in this, and for everybody watching, for the thousands of students watching, for the enterprise companies, for blockchain platforms, etc., these are the conversations I think that are interesting. And I think, Andrew's perspective, especially on developers, the conversation we're having around like, what does it take how should people think about this? What does this evolution look like? What are the tools people need? What are the things that might not even be the tech, right, that are also barriers, right, that are seemingly unrelated, because I believe that they're there. But last thing, Andrew, I'm going to let you take us out. If you have a time machine, you go back, you're a 19-year-old kid today, you're in college, you're an engineering major, and you're thinking about blockchain, like, what advice would you give to them? Like, how would you think about it?
I would tell them not to think about blockchain at all. Technologies are always changing. There's always new technologies coming to the market and innovations being made. As an engineer, you will be always evaluating the landscape and picking the best tools for the job. What never changes is human wants and needs. And as an engineer, that's actually going to be the biggest challenge for you, because you understand technical stuff. And so what you need to do is you need to fill that gap, at least if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to mix your technical skill with launching a company, starting a company, delivering a product to market, you got to understand human wants and needs, and then pick the tools that enable you to build stuff that you're really excited about, that you think will improve things, add value to lots of people's lives, and satisfy people's wants and needs.
Love it. All right. Final word, like, what excites you in the next 1 year in blockchain?
On the next 1 year, we're going to be releasing the Koinos blockchain, which is going to be the most usable blockchain. It's going to have several key features. It's going to be insanely developer friendly. It's going to be scalable, and it's going to be low cost. People are, that's the biggest thing for developers. So it's going to be really easy to integrate into your apps, and using it is going to be low cost. And of course, we've got a few other innovations up our sleeve that we think are going to be super exciting. But we think that as far as powering applications that deliver a user experience on par with what people have become accustomed to, what people expect from the internet, while delivering the revolutionary features that blockchain is capable of delivering, but has not been realized. That's what we're going to do with Koinos, and with Odyssey, its sister product, which will make it easy to integrate into apps. And so, obviously we wouldn't be working so hard on zero salaries if we didn't think that this was going to be the most exciting development in the space in the next year. So if you want to learn more, go to openorchard.io, put your name on our email list, and eventually we'll start sending out a newsletter.
Love it. Guys, we're going to run. We're doing this for 72 hours straight. Amazing conversations. I hope you enjoyed this one. Andrew, it was very nice talking with you.
Yeah, great chatting with you. I'm impressed with the energy you've been able to maintain.
Either that or go to sleep, man. There's only two options out of this. Really appreciate it. But hey, nope. I'll sleep when we go live. But for everybody watching, appreciate it. We have more interesting stuff coming. Really great interviews. Really diverse sets of speakers. I think diverse sets of viewpoints. And again, we hope you guys are all appreciating it. So Reimagine 2020. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Talk to you later, Andrew.
Stay tuned to learn more about the state of blockchain education at major universities all around the world. Reimagine 2020.